Lena Ashveil carried her tray like she carried everything else quietly, and without spilling. The Ironmoor Pack hall had been decorated for the king's inspection. Silver banners, long tables, the kind of careful effort that says, "We want to be seen as important." Lena moved between the tables and pretended she was furniture. It was a skill she had spent 3 years perfecting. The convoy arrived at noon. She heard it before she saw it. The crowd outside going still, the way crowds go still, when something large and unavoidable approaches. Not afraid, exactly. More like the collective instinct to stop talking and pay attention. She kept her eyes on her tray. Glasses, pitchers, tray. Alpha Dre Ironmoor's voice carried across the hall like a stone skipping water. "The Alpha King honors us with his presence. Every member of this pack will stand for inspection. Every member." He said every member the way people say things. They want one specific person to hear. Lena set the pitcher down and stood with the others. She had not always been the lowest-ranked wolf in Ironmoor. 3 years ago, she had been something different. Not powerful, not ranked high, but present. Her wolf had been there, warm and constant at the back of her chest, the way a fire is there even when you are not looking at it. Then came the night that nobody talked about. After that night, the fire went out. A wolf without its wolf is still a person. The pack treated her like she was evidence of something, proof that weakness was real, that it had a face and a name, and it carried trays at formal events. She had stopped waiting for that to change. Galen Voss walked into the hall, and the air rearranged itself around him. That was the only way Lena could describe it later, in the quiet of her own mind. He was not extraordinarily tall. He was not covered in visible power the way some alphas were, all chest and noise and dominance worn like jewelry. He was simply built at a scale that did not quite match the room, like the hall had been designed for regular men, and he had shown up by accident. His eyes moved across the crowd the way a hand moves across a map, not searching, just reading. Lena looked down at her tray. Alpha Dre gave his speech from the raised platform. He spoke of the pack's strength, its loyalty, its prosperity. He named the high-ranked wolves with pride, the warriors, the trackers, the council members. He moved down the list with increasing speed the closer he got to the bottom, the way a person rushes through the part of a story they are embarrassed by. And then he reached her name. Lena Ashveil, Omega rank, dormant wolf status, maintained by pack generosity. He did not look at her when he said it. A few people laughed, small, practiced laughs, the kind that had been laughed before. Most looked at the floor or the ceiling, or anywhere except at her. A woman near the back smiled the specific smile of someone who feels better about their own life when they look at yours. Lena stood very still. At the dais, the Alpha King had not moved. He was watching her, not with pity, not with curiosity, with the kind of careful, direct attention that a person gives to something they have already decided is important and are simply learning more about. She looked away first. The ranking ritual began an hour later. Each pack member was required to walk to the front of the hall, stand before the Alpha King, and bow, a formal acknowledgement of the hierarchy. It was routine. It was old. It meant nothing except that it meant everything, the way traditions mean everything, even when they mean nothing. High ranks went first, the warriors, the trackers, the council. Each wolf approached, bowed, stepped aside. Galen Voss watched each one with the same level attention. He nodded at a few, said nothing. His face gave away nothing useful. The ranks moved downward. When Lena's turn came, the hall had been doing this for 40 minutes, and the crowd was restless and tired, and ready for it to be finished. She walked to the front. The distance between her and the dais was not long. It felt long. She stood in front of him. Her knees did not bend. She had intended to bow, she had decided to bow, but her body, which had learned over 3 years to protect itself in ways her mind had not approved, simply did not do it. Her spine stayed straight, her chin stayed level, her hands were still at her sides. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence than the hall had produced all afternoon. Alpha Dre made a sharp sound. "Ashveil, you will bow." Her knees did not bend. It was not defiance. Defiance requires energy she had stopped spending. It was something older than defiance, The last inch of a person that refuses to be made smaller, not because it is brave, but because it is simply done. Calum Voss stood up. Nobody expected that. He was not supposed to stand. The ritual did not require him to stand. Alpha Kings sat and received the pack's acknowledgement. They did not rise for Omega Wolves with dormant bonds and trays of refreshments, and names spoken quickly out of embarrassment. He stood. And then his wolf moved. It happened without announcement or ceremony. The bond mark came like light that had been waiting for permission. Silver and warm, and completely certain of itself. It traced across the base of Lena's throat, her collarbone, the line of her shoulder. Not placed, not given, chosen. The distinction matters in wolf law, and everyone in the hall knew it. A mark that is given can be negotiated. A mark that is chosen by the wolf itself is the end of the negotiation. Every set of eyes in the hall went to Lena's neck. Nobody breathed. Alpha Dre's face went a color that had no name. The woman near the back stopped smiling. Calum Voss did not turn to face the crowd. He looked at Dre Ironmoor. He let the silence run long enough to become uncomfortable, and then longer, until it became something else. A message, a weight, a pressure that everyone in the room could feel, and no one could move out from under. He said 4 words, "Clean up your house." And then he sat back down. What broke first was the sound. A single exhale from someone near the back that released the rest of the room's held breath all at once. Then whispering, fast, low, urgent. The sound of an entire group of people rapidly revising their understanding of the last 3 years. Alpha Dre did not speak. His mouth opened once and closed. Lena stood in the same spot. The mark on her collarbone was warm. It was not painful. It felt like something returning, the way a hand feels when blood comes back into it, after being held in a fist for too long. She looked at Dre Ironmoor. She had looked at him many times over 3 years. She had looked at him from serving positions and low-rank gatherings, and the back of every room he stood at the front of. She had looked at him the way people look at weather, without expectation, because you cannot argue with weather. She looked at him now differently. Not with triumph, not with anger, with recognition. She could see clearly, for the first time, what he actually was. Not a strong alpha who had correctly identified weakness in his pack. A frightened man who had needed something to stand above, so that no one would look too closely at the things he stood below. He had been afraid of her. 3 years, all of it, built on that. Her wolf came back. Not with a sound, not with a shock. More like a door opening slowly in a room she had believed, for so long, was empty, and finding the fire still there, smaller than before, but burning. Her chest filled with warmth from the inside, the way a room fills with morning when the curtains open. She did not make a sound. The hall was loud enough for both of them. The pack fractured along lines that had been cracked for years without anyone admitting it. The people who had laughed moved toward the walls. The people who had looked at the floor found reasons to look at Lena now, some with guilt that was real, some with guilt that was only the performance of guilt, and she could already tell the difference between those two things. The council members spoke to each other in voices too low to hear. 2 of the warriors, young, newer to the pack, positioned themselves near her without being asked, the way wolves do when hierarchy has clarified, and they are making sure they are standing near the correct person. Alpha Dre left the hall. Nobody stopped him. Nobody followed him. The woman near the back with the smile found something very important to study in the middle distance. Lena stood, in the clearing of all this, and felt, for the first time in a very long time, the specific weight of being seen. Not looked at, seen. The difference between those two things is vast, and she had not known how much she had missed the second one until it was happening to her again. He found her outside, after. She was standing at the edge of the hall's outer courtyard. The gathering inside was still noise and revision, and the complicated human work of adjusting to a changed reality. She had needed air, or she had needed the absence of being watched. She was not yet sure which. He walked without announcement and stood beside her, not in front, not slightly behind, but beside, level, as if this were a conversation between 2 people of equal standing, and he had no interest in pretending otherwise. He did not ask if she was all right. She noticed this immediately. She had been asked that question by people who were actually asking, "Are you going to be a problem?" And she had learned to hear the difference. He simply did not ask it. After a moment, he said, "What do you want?" The question sat in the air between them. She thought about it the way she thought about everything, carefully, without rushing, checking the answer before she gave it the way a person checks a floor before they step. She had wanted many things over 3 years. She had wanted her wolf back. She had wanted to be left alone. She had wanted someone to walk into that hall and understand, without explanation, what had been done and how long it had been going on. She had all of those things now, which left the question open. To never be proof of anything again, she said. Not of weakness, not of survival, not of anything, just myself. He was quiet for a moment. "Done," he said. One word. Said the way things are said, when a decision has already been made, and the speaking of it is only formality. The mark on her collarbone glowed softly in the evening air. Warm, certain, completely without urgency. Her wolf settled in her chest like a fire that knows it will not go out. She did not thank him. He did not expect thanks. They stood beside each other in the quiet for a while longer, the noise of the rearranging pack inside the hall becoming a kind of background to the stillness they had made outside of it. Somewhere behind them, someone was cleaning up. The house was being set in order. For the first time in 3 years, Lena Ashveil was not the problem being addressed, the example being made, or the lesson being taught. She was simply a woman standing outside on an evening in early autumn, with a wolf awake in her chest, and a future she had not yet decided what to do with. That was enough. For right now, that was more than enough.